In the spring of 2007 in Minot, North Dakota, the murder of a popular, kind-hearted, and widely loved 18-year-old student sparked a mystery that would persist for 15 years. This is a case that has produced so many suspects, yet so little valuable evidence. Anita Knutson seemingly had no enemies. Hi everyone, I'm Kevin and this is Just Thought Lounge. JTL is the true crime channel that delivers serious, well-balanced coverage of the cases that really make you think. You may have heard of the case that we're about to look at. It has been the topic of speculation, suspicions, and finger-pointing for over 15 years. After so much time has passed, it was a television show that would take another look at this puzzle and start putting the pieces together. Let's take a look. In the small community of Butte, North Dakota, population roughly 70, the Knutson family raised 3 children, Daniel, Anita, and Anna. Butte lies on the northern edge of McLean County. It takes roughly an hour to drive to Minot, where Anita, at the age of 18, had just completed her freshman year at MSU, Minot State University. Anita was bright, hardworking, and extremely well-liked. She was majoring in elementary education in pursuit of a career as a kindergarten teacher. Family and friends of the 18-year-old agreed that this career path suited Anita perfectly. Just off campus was the apartment that she rented with a childhood friend. Anita was working 2 jobs to keep up with her studies and rent, one at a local hotel and the second in retail. Despite what was no doubt an extremely busy schedule, she maintained an active social life and had a large circle of friends. In June 2007, Anita was looking forward to the summer break. Anita stayed in close contact with her family in Butte, speaking with either of her parents and siblings most days. So it was a bit odd when her mother gave her a ring on the Saturday, June 3rd, and received no response. Anita was scheduled for work at the hotel that day. Perhaps she was simply busy working her shift. On Sunday, however, Anita could still not be reached, and as it turned out, she had not turned up to work her shift the day before. So Gordon Knutson, Anita's father, made the short drive out to Minot to check on her. The window to Anita's bedroom sat just to the left of the front entrance. It was visible as Gordon arrived at the building. When he approached, he could see that the window had been broken, and he had a clear view inside. Approaching the window, Gordon viewed a figure hunched over on top of the bed, which sat just inside the windowsill. Although her face was not towards him, Gordon knew that figure on the bed was Anita. He was able to reach through the window and found his daughter was cold to the touch. Panicked, Gordon sought out the property management. The landlady, Laura Knapp, opened the door for Gordon to enter. Inside, he found Anita, but it was too late to save her. The police were called out to the building. Anita had been stabbed twice, once in the middle of the chest and once on her right side. There were no other signs of distress or indications of a struggle. The killer had acted quickly. Sources are unclear as to whether Anita had been wearing a robe or whether one had been draped over her after she collapsed forward on the bed. The latter would suggest that the murder was personal. The act of covering her up after the fact was perhaps to disassociate the killer from what they had done, or perhaps to provide her with greater dignity. At the end of the bed were relevant items. First, Anita's cell phone. Secondly, though crucially, a pocket knife with dried blood was located underneath a comforter on the bed, close to the wall and open window. Multiple items of value remained untouched, including cash in Anita's purse, her laptop, her cell phone, and digital camera. With the room otherwise undisturbed, theft seemed an unlikely motive. Detectives at the scene determined that the open window could not have been the means of entry for the killer. This, despite that it had been left open and large enough for an adult to fit through. A maintenance worker for the complex, a man named Marty Annell, had discovered the screen for the window lying on the ground outside the evening before. The screen had clearly been cut, sliced in an L shape with a sharp blade, likely the pocket knife. The worker had collected the screen from the ground and had not thought any more about it. He intended to have it repaired or replaced. That is, until Gordon Knutson arrived the next day concerned for his daughter and insistent that he get inside to see her. Marty then produced the broken screen. He later turned it over to law enforcement. Despite the state of the window screen, investigators were not convinced that they were looking at a break-in. Both the area beneath the window on the inside of the bedroom and the dust from the interior windowsill had not been disturbed. Furthermore, testing confirmed that there were traces of blood on the screen, a transfer from the bloody knife found on the bed. It had been cut after the murder, not prior. The murderer had not used the window to enter. This was staged. They must have used the door. When Gordon was granted access by Laura Knapp, the front door had been locked. The lock was the kind that required a key to both unlock and to lock the door. There were 4 individuals that were known to have keys to the apartment. One key was Anita's. Another was for her roommate Nicole, who was out of town that weekend. Laura, the landlady, obviously held one. And the 4th key was in possession of the maintenance worker Marty. Investigators had already found it suspicious that Marty had the screen in his possession and had somehow retrieved it in the manner that he stated, yet claimed that he did not see Anita on the bed just inside the window when he collected the screen from the ground outside. As Gordon had attested, when he approached the building, Anita was in clear view to him from the exterior of the building. Initial DNA testing on items, including the pocket knife, and other evidence throughout the room returned nothing of value. The path to the killer had to be found another way. Investigators set out examining the personal life of Anita Knutson. It was determined that Anita had likely been killed early Sunday morning, more than a day before her body was found. Cell phone records and a forensic analysis of Anita's phone indicated that she was texting a friend in the early morning hours the day before she was discovered, Sunday, June 3rd. At 4:43 a.m., this friend and potential love interest, Michael Money Van, sent a text message to Anita stating, "I thought you were going to reply to the last text." The exchange had been personal in nature, but not at all flirtatious. 5 minutes later, Anita did respond, "I didn't know what to say." The last text received to Anita's phone followed at 4:53 a.m., and it said, "You don't need to say anything." That message was never registered as read on Anita's device. Her last known communication was the previous message to Michael at 4:48 a.m. Michael was known to want more than a friendly texting relationship with Anita, but according to friends, the two had never moved beyond this stage. Michael, however, was not the only man in Anita's life who held out hope for a romantic relationship. Back in Butte, Tyler Schmaltz had been an awkward teenager with few friends. By his own admission, Anita had been one of the few students that had been kind to him, his only real friend. Tyler and Anita attended their high school prom together, but the two were never romantically involved. This was not what Tyler wanted, however. When questioned by police, Tyler openly admitted a long-held crush on Anita. Tyler believed that he and Anita were best friends. He had even moved into the same apartment complex to be closer to her. Anita's family found Tyler's behavior after the murder quite odd. He was spotted lingering outside the scene by police. He inquired directly with them regularly for updates. Tyler created a 20-minute tribute video in Anita's memory and posted it online. He set up a GoFundMe page, organized and contributed to other fundraising activities to pay for billboards to promote information gathering and to further support the investigation. Tyler was interviewed multiple times by law enforcement. His DNA and fingerprints were taken and compared to those at the scene. There was no match made to Tyler or to anyone else. Shortly after Anita was discovered, a witness told police that he viewed a man running from the crime scene area around the time that Anita was thought to have been killed. Police circulated a description of the individual and attempted to track the man down. A local man came forward right away, telling police that he jogged that route regularly at about that time in the early morning. After hearing this lead was set aside. A nearby building under construction had a crew working for weeks overlooking Anita's apartment complex. Every worker on the site took a DNA test, and roofers who had undertaken work at the complex were also eliminated, one by one. Meanwhile, those closest to Anita were interviewed, including her longtime friend and roommate, Nicole Thomas. The two had been friends since high school and had, at one time, been quite close. According to Nicole, this was still the case. She told police that she and Anita had the standard roommate disputes, but they really didn't argue. They were best friends. Others in Anita's social circle, however, painted a very different picture of her relationship with Nicole. According to friends, they argued frequently. Gordon Knutson even reported installing a lock on Anita's bedroom door only a month before she was killed because his daughter was worried about her safety at home. It was widely believed that Nicole was jealous of the attention that Anita received, not only from mutual friends, but from potential love interests. Conversely, Anita disliked that Nicole frequently invited men over to the apartment, often leaving while the men were still there. According to Anita, the roommates had arguments that sometimes escalated to screaming matches. Text messages from Nicole to Anita also suggested that Nicole was misrepresenting their relationship. In one message, Nicole wrote, "Seriously, what did I do to you? I ain't ever home. You pretty much have the effing place to yourself, for Christ's sake." This angry message, like many others from Nicole, were discovered on Anita's phone, left unanswered. According to Minot police, the initial investigation saw more than 40 people interviewed. There were multiple DNA samples obtained, from Anita's fingernails, from the window, and from the knife. These samples failed to return any matches at the time, but were retained for future comparison. The investigation did not return a prime suspect, but it did eliminate particular persons of interest. Tyler Schmaltz, for example, was discounted as a suspect. Aside from the general observation that his behavior was deemed weird and that his affection for Anita could have been interpreted as obsessive, there was nothing tangible connecting him to the crime. The murder did not appear to be one of passion. Furthermore, it seemed very likely that the murderer did not come through the window. Whoever it was had had access to a key for the apartment when they left at the very least, so they could lock the door when they exited. Tyler's desire to assist the investigation and find Anita's killer appeared genuine. He had no motive to hurt her. He gave interviews willingly to both the police and to the media in the years following Anita's death.
Dating?
No, not dating. I just had a crush on her. We were just friends.
Oh, so you had a crush on her?
Yes.
Was it reciprocal?
Yes.
She had a crush on you back?
No, it wasn't. No, sorry.
So it wasn't reciprocated?
No.
Marty Annell, the maintenance worker, was also scrutinized closely following the murder. That is, until he was found dead in his apartment in January 2009. To the surprise of those close to him, Marty's death was ruled a suicide. Speculation persisted for years that Marty had been involved in Anita's murder, and his unexpected death only raised suspicions that he had been unable to live with the guilt. But investigators were never able to make a connection to Marty, who had cooperated fully, including offering the slash screen, agreeing to answer questions, and giving DNA for testing. The Anita Knutson case remained open with no notable progress for almost 15 years. It was not only Tyler that was pushing for answers. The Knutson family gave interviews and pleas for information, any small piece that could help connect the puzzle. In a devastating development, Anita's brother Daniel, with whom she had been extremely close, took his own life in April 2013. The family believes that it was the grief over Anita that led to his depression. Anna, the youngest of the siblings, has stated that their sister's death was particularly devastating for her brother, and the incident had forever changed him. To the Knutson family, 2 of their children were lost when Anita was killed. In autumn of 2021, fresh life was breathed into the investigation when the American crime show Cold Justice took on Anita's case and sought to solve the mystery surrounding her murder. Cold Justice is a program that re-examines cold cases with the assistance of the show's own funding and resources. And as such, they have had a successful track record of leading law enforcement to arrests. Such was the case when the program descended on Minot, North Dakota, and began hunting down individuals who had known Anita Knutson. The program identified 4 key suspects: Tyler Schmaltz, whom they questioned yet again and was rapidly dismissed as a suspect; Michael Money Van, the wannabe boyfriend, who was the last person to text with Anita; Marty Annell, the unfortunate maintenance worker; and Nicole Thomas, who had in the subsequent years become Nicole Rice. The show's investigative team, which included Minot police detective McKaylee Talbot, found no evidence indicating animosity between Anita and Michael Van. He was eliminated by their assessment. They also determined that Marty's claim to have been unable to view Anita from the exterior of the building through the window when he collected the broken screen was likely legitimate. Police reports indicated that the lights had been turned off inside the bedroom when they arrived. With the sun down at the time of day that Marty was outside the window, he would not have been able to see clearly into the room as Gordon Knutson had done the following day. This left one clear suspect, Nicole Rice. Nicole was arrested at Minot Air Force Base, where she worked in a civilian capacity. In 2021, she was charged with the murder of Anita Knutson.
Now, after nearly 15 years of investigating and following up on leads, and the suspect is in custody. At about 3:25 p.m., 34-year-old Nicole Rice was arrested for murder and taken to Ward County Jail. Although most of the detectives who worked the original scene and investigation have retired, we have not forgotten about this case. Detective Carmen Asham and McKaylee Talbot were assigned to take over as the lead investigators. We tried to actively investigate Anita's case for the past few years, and finally, with the help of cold justice, we were able to move forward and regain focus. Due to the resources, logistics, planning, and experts they were able to provide, we were able to obtain an arrest warrant for Nicole Rice.
Nicole was released on a cash bond of $125,000 pending trial. Her husband stood by her as she pushed for the charges to be dismissed. The state presented their case for probable cause.
The state of North Dakota versus Nicole Erin Rice. Ms. Rice is charged with murder.
Again, the charge is murder, class AA felony. How do you plead, man? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Court will accept your plea of not guilty at this time.
It had been clear since the early days of the investigation that Nicole was the only person in Anita's life that had any disputes with her. Text messages between the two showed a growing escalation and desire from both sides to part ways should they be able to get out of their apartment lease. Mutual friends said that despite being very close when they were younger, the pair's relationship had grown toxic since they moved in together. Those interviewed recalled conflicts over an alarm clock and a fish tank, as well as Nicole calling Anita derogatory names to others. For years, Nicole had avoided arrest largely due to her alibi. Nicole's parents placed her with them all weekend at their family farm, from June 2nd through to the 4th, directly overlapping with the presumed time of death. The only problem was that a witness reported that she saw Nicole at a bar roughly 45 minutes from Minot on June 2nd, 2007, and that Nicole told her she went back to her apartment after to get some clothes. At a pretrial hearing in late 2022, Detective Talbot recounted a number of statements made by people who knew both Nicole and Anita at the time. Detective Talbot testified to the inconsistencies in her statements and alibi, which led in part to the re-examination of her as a suspect.
Over the investigation, Nicole's statements have been inconsistent from the start. They have changed drastically from not seeing Anita to seeing Anita to not being in Minot all over the weekend to now coming back to Minot on Saturday night after she left the bar.
Perhaps amongst the most damning revelations from the years following came from an ex-boyfriend of Nicole's. After becoming what was described as belligerently drunk at a party, Nicole had been hounded by various party guests about the murder. Angrily and sarcastically, she was rumored to have proclaimed her guilt to everyone in earshot.
The tip was submitted back in 2008 or 9 regarding a statement made at the party where Nicole had actually confessed to the murder. It was unknown to law enforcement at the time, or to me, I guess, who that was until 2022, where William May had been identified as the individual who provided that tip.
Back at home, her then-boyfriend told police that she legitimately confessed. She did it, she said to him. Subsequent attempts to have her repeat the statement while sober, however, failed.
She had an extreme hatred towards her. She was trying to move out of the apartment. I believe that it was a staged crime scene. She has means, motive, and opportunity at that time.
The state's case also relies on a DNA sample collected from the pocket knife. The sample was too small to be tested against the law enforcement database, but could be analyzed with other samples side by side. The sample was tested against a number of persons of interest, but Nicole was the only individual who could not be excluded by investigators.
And any of those samples that were sent for comparison, were any of them included, excluded, incapable of being excluded.
All of the male profiles that were sent have been able to be excluded from the profiles developed from the knife. The only profile that cannot be excluded or DNA sample that has been submitted is Nicole's.
The judge determined that there was sufficient evidence against Nicole to proceed with the charges. The state had not published the discovery of any new evidence since the arrest. They had claimed only that a reassessment of the existing case was strong enough to move forward. When the case reaches trial, probably in mid to late 2023, Nicole's defense attorney, Philip Becker, is likely to point the finger at yet another new suspect. A man named Devin Hall, who had been arrested for breaking into homes armed with a knife in the days after the murder. Minot police arresting officer at the time wrote in his report that Devin Hall had said, "I've been in a lot of houses here." Attorney Becker also pointed to the statement from the witness who had reported seeing the man running from the area around the time of the murder. The description of this man, the defense claimed, matches that of Devin Hall. The defense is also supported by a number of reports from prior investigators and even analysts from the FBI who theorized that Devin Hall was the most likely suspect to have broken in and killed Anita.
Are you aware that the FBI profilers, after having been provided the entire file up until 2009 when this meeting happened, that was the conclusion they drew, that Devin Hall was the most likely suspect? And
I don't know.
I don't even see anything, any even reference to Nicole as far as the FBI profilers are concerned. Would that be fair to say?
I mean, per this paragraph, there's nothing referencing Nicole.
Investigators ruled Devin out as a suspect after acquiring video footage of him arriving in Minot at the train station the evening after the murder. He was not in Minot when they believed the murder occurred, hence when the runner was seen leaving the scene. It is likely that the defense will also seek to poke holes in this timeline and the state's determination of the time of death. Prosecutors believe she died in the early morning of June 3rd, shortly after sending her final text messages. If the burglar, Devin Hall, was the killer, then Anita must have died much later, after he arrived by train on the evening of June 3rd. With what has been revealed so far from this extensive investigation, the case against Nicole Rice is not overwhelming, and there are no shortage of others who the defense could point towards. It will be interesting to see if the case against Nicole Rice can withstand the threshold of reasonable doubt. By the publication of this video, no formal trial dates have been set. Nicole Rice faces the possibility of life in prison without parole if she's convicted of the murder. And that was the story of the 15-year-long investigation into the murder of Anita Knutson. Thanks for watching. I'm Kevin. This is Just Thought Lounge, and I'll see you in the next one.